Live everywhere.
Daily Co's Radio on netrootsradio.com presents
David Walton. Kagro in the Morning Show. Now, here's David Waldman.
Hey, good morning, everybody. How you doing? It is 9 o'clock, or just past 9 o'clock on Thursday, October 6th, 2016. Had to suppress a gigantic yawn on my way to the microphone this morning. Let's see if everything's working today. Yeah, okay, very good. I had to reboot the desktop, make sure everything was working. It's dragging along, but it's getting there. We got a raft of stories to get through today. Man, it turns out that Donald Trump is still running for president, despite I've asked people to shake me, pinch me, all sorts of things to try and wake me up from this horrible, horrible, horrible nightmare that we have. But so far, nothing has done the trick. Okay, well, like I said, the pocket is full of stories. 10,000 different angles on Donald Trump going on. I always feel bad about it. Each day rolls around and I say, it really looks like we're going to be covering different aspects of how terrible Donald Trump is today. Don't people want more substance? And there's just simply no room for it in the coverage of this campaign, which is really rather amazing. I mean, usually by this point, we're debating a little bit about major policy versus major policy. What your tax plan versus my tax plan. This person's whatever. I mean, and it's usually tax economic plans. Rarely foreign policy. Foreign policy is very often, I want to beat the crap out of somebody. So do I. But I want to do it with a different set of weapons or something like that. So I guess that's though foreign policy is always usually gets a debate all to itself, and people will disagree about it. We haven't even gotten to this stage yet. There's no point, I guess, in discussing policy differences when Trump has no interest in. I mean, if the guy's not grounded in reality, I don't know what you do. I was just looking at. I was looking at Twitter. I don't know if you believe me about that, but it's true. And what's the name of the journalist who compiles now daily lists of the lies that Donald Trump utters? And I have to scroll back down. Our Canadian friend. Now I can't bring his name to mind, but except the initials D. Right? He's a David, he's not a Donald himself, but it'll come to me as I scroll back one down. Daniel Dale, thank you very much. Greg, getting ready. I knew he would know off the top of his head. Greg's in the green room, by which I mean in his house in Connecticut, and getting his coffee and water positioned, but he was able to hear my musings. Yeah, Daniel Dale, but now I got to scroll back. God help you if you miss something on Twitter and then say, oh, I'd really like to look at that. And then you try scrolling back to find it. My Twitter feed is a mess that way, and there's probably about 0% chance of finding it. But there it is, Daniel Dale's piece from today. And it's the usual litany. There's 15 of them, some more important than others. But I bring it up only to note that when it comes to something like foreign policy, all he says is stuff like, Iran in less than 10 years will have nuclear weapons. Clinton wants open borders. And there are thousands of refugees being admitted with no way to screen them, all of which is just not really true. I guess the closest you get is the Iran thing. The most estimates are that Iran would be, I guess if unchecked, 11 to 15 years from getting nuclear weapons. I can even excuse that in less than 10 years from now. Well, maybe 9 years. 9 isn't terribly different from 11 when you're talking about Iranians with nuclear weapons, I guess. But, and Greg has some suggestions about how to search Twitter. Yeah, I'm sure there are tools. It's just I forget that they exist, and then, of course, trying to scramble to do it all at once is a problem. But what else did he have to say? He was on trade, foreign trade. He just sort of makes up numbers. So I don't know what you do to discuss anything with this guy. One of his falsehoods yesterday, I guess, sort of one of our pet things here. He, this is really wild. It takes a certain skill, I think, to raise pronunciation to the level of a lie and make it onto this list. I mean, he's not terribly strict about what counts as a lie, but he was in Nevada yesterday, and you know how we do it here. I grew up saying Nevada, and so did, I guess, Donald Trump. But if you say Nevada and Nevadans say Nevada, it's Nevada. I understand you learned it wrong, but okay. And I also understand the argument that Nevada is arguably wrong. It's from the Spanish, so I would think that Nevada would be the proper pronunciation. But you know how it is when English-speaking people take over a place. They just impose their own names on it. And okay, now we all say Nevada. That's fine. That's just a mistake to say Nevada. But of course somebody says to him, oh, by the way, it's not pronounced Nevada, it's pronounced Nevada. And he says, nobody says it the other way. It has to be Nevada. As numerous Nevada media outlets pointed out, most people do use Nevada, at least in Nevada. I don't know why they do. They just do. It's, I guess, the same reason that the town in Virginia, which would otherwise ordinarily be pronounced from its Spanish derivation, Buena Vista, as they do in Florida, where there are more Spanish speakers, I guess. Well, I'm pretty sure about that. The Walt Disney's favorite place, Lake Buena Vista. Right? I mean, nice vista. Beautiful. Not beautiful necessarily, but, a nice vista, a nice view. Okay, simple enough. Buena Vista. And, Buena, not even a particularly difficult one to pronounce for English speakers, but I guess way back in the day it was, because that town of what would otherwise be Buena Vista in Virginia is insistent that it is pronounced Buena Vista. And if you go there, they'll say it's Buena Vista. Well, it's not. It's Buena Vista. You just don't know what you're doing. No, we say Buena Vista. So here we say, okay, like dogs, we agree that it's going to be Buena Vista.
Let me go take care of that. I'll be back.
Okay, sure thing. Maybe it might be a Spanish teacher at the door, for all we know. Maybe a good guest. So if they speak Spanish, bring them in, Greg. If they speak dog, bring them in to talk to the dog. You need a whisperer there. So I don't know why we call it Buena Vista, but we do. They say Nevada, fine. I know a lot of people get touchier about other things. Oregon, which I guess
the funny thing is, of course, I'm from New York City, so it's Houston Street.
See, that's another one. I mean,
and the question is, if Donald Trump goes to Texas, is he going to pronounce it wrong?
Houston. I wonder whether he would. He probably wouldn't.
Well, he's from New York.
Yeah.
Why wouldn't he?
I don't. Do you think Houston Street is someplace he's been?
Well, he'll make some fun of it.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, he should make light of it.
And making fun of how you pronounce things when you're where you are doing this, like in Nevada, I mean, that always goes over well. Just ask any Nevadan. Just ask John Ralston.
Yes. Oh, yeah, he's having a great time with it. So I recommend he do it everywhere. Maybe now he could raise it to the level of a joke. Good morning, Cleveland. How are you?
Yeah, something along those lines. So we got some lots of new polling this morning.
Oh, all right. That's good.
And it's a funny thing. All the people who were convinced that Trump won are now confronting the fact that the chatter about that debate is, first of all, hardly anybody watched it. It had less than 40 million people. The last time that few people watched a vice presidential debate, it was Joe Lieberman patting Dick Cheney on the back.
It's pronounced debate.
You got to go back that far.
Okay. Lieberman.
So because people didn't see the debate, all they hear about is what happened at the debate and see the sound clips from the debate. Okay? And so this is where Tim Kaine's strategy comes in. Because Pence doesn't have any debate sound clips, sound bites. You know why? Kaine kept interrupting him.
Huh. Oh, that's a good... Yeah.
There was no sound bites to show.
That's a good... Not without Kaine in there anyway.
right? And then somebody said to me, you're just whistling in the wind and looking, pretending that Pence really didn't win. And I was having this discussion on Daily Kos this morning in the comments of the Pundit Roundup, and I said, the best analogy is bases loaded, double play, no outs. You're ahead 6. You get the double play and concede a run. You win the game.
Mm-hmm.
That Kaine felt uncomfortable doing what he was doing is a good thing, not a bad thing. People say, well, Pence won on style. Kaine's like a normal person. Anybody would have felt uncomfortable in the attack role doing what people scripted out for you to do because it was strategy. But again, as we talked about the other day, if they were running for governor of Illinois, neutral territory, that's not what Kaine would do, but he did what he needed to do because that was the strategy. Any normal person would be uncomfortable with that. But this was not Pence versus Kaine. It was Clinton versus Trump, and who benefited after. And so what are we talking about even as of today? How much Pence lied, how often Kaine interrupted, and who cares? Whether Pence helped himself in 2020 relative to where he was now, and just how mad is Trump that Pence didn't defend him all that much. Maybe it is, maybe it's not. Some people say yes, some people say no. But that's what we're talking about. We're not talking about any attacks on Clinton. We're not talking about any sound bites where Pence was attacking Clinton on stuff. Nothing.
Yeah. Well, that's true.
So who won the debate? Clinton did.
And the audience.
But not the moderator. Lester Holt won that one because that moderator was terrible.
Yeah, that's too bad. I hope that doesn't get in the way of any. I don't know whether do I care whether she has another shot at it? I don't know. Probably not.
And somebody else is just writing in. I love Kaine tactics. Who can remember anything Pence said about Clinton?
Bingo.
I
cannot. But then again, I didn't watch.
But we remember what Kaine said about Pence. The one line that anybody's going to see as a soundbite from this debate is, how can you ask people to vote for somebody you can't defend?
Yeah. Well,
now, that's not a killer line like the Benson one, but that's the only one that people are going to be talking about.
It's a good strategy, mostly because it's me-centric. You design your debate strategy, particularly for VPs, with the idea in mind that most people probably get their news about the debate the way I do. Not watch it, but after the fact. Someone else will digest it. They'll tell me what the hot stuff was and play me the clips. How? Man, look, all the clips are of the other guy. I don't hear anything from this other loser. That's weird.
Right. So anyway, let's see how the real world is playing. Larry Sabato has just done an updated electoral vote count for Crystal Ball. And currently, we have Democrats 316 safe, likely, or lean, 7 toss-ups. That includes Nevada, which I don't think is really a toss-up, and Nebraska 2, which is Warren Buffett territory. And the Republicans have 215. So this is a winning hand for Clinton as of the moment. And here's how he makes the changes pre- and post-debate. Colorado goes from leans Democratic to likely Democratic, which is true. 2 polls, 10 and 11 points for Clinton in Colorado recently. Or is it Colorado?
Colorado.
Colorado, right. Florida goes from toss-up to leans Democratic. And best wishes to all the Floridians out there having to deal with Matthew. Matthew can slam the state and be a Andrew kind of thing. Sort of expecting it, and then holy cow when it actually hits. So stay safe, folks. If people tell you to evacuate, get the hell out of there.
Yeah, listen to Chris Christie.
Maine, likely Democratic to leans Democratic. I think that's fair, but still leans. And, it's very likely that Clinton will lose Maine 2 and win Maine 1 and win the state.
Oh, yes. Okay.
New Mexico, safe Democratic to likely Democratic. Whatever. I mean, it's Democratic. There's not a lot of good polling. But enough to say that, it's a pretty safe one. There's a very recent New Mexico poll out, I think, sort of much safer than almost, 3 or 4 points. North Carolina went from toss-up to leans Democratic, which is true. She's leading there.
Yes.
And Virginia goes from leans Democratic to likely Democratic. So the point is she holds Colorado, Virginia, and Pennsylvania. And under those circumstances, if she takes Florida, then it's kind of like over.
Yeah. Okay.
New polling out today from PRRI for the Atlantic magazine.
PRRI.
This is the Public Policy Religious Institute, I think.
Huh. Okay.
Something like that. And they do a lot of interesting polls about stuff and religion.
Oh, okay.
But pre-debate, September
Who's your
23 through
favorite
25, they
singer?
had Clinton and Trump tied. And now it's Clinton 47, Trump 41.
Okay.
The candidates don't know, refused, didn't budge.
They're not like interviewing only religious people, though. They just happen to work for a religious outlet.
Well, they actually are a nonpartisan poll that spotlights some American issues the way Pew sometimes does.
Okay.
For example, consistent with past presidential contests, white Christian voters favor the current Republican nominee by 2-1, 59-30, and in contrast, non-white Christian voters are supporting Clinton over Trump, 74-18. Nearly 7 in 10 white evangelicals favor Trump. Fewer than 1 in 5 say they're supporting Clinton. Majority of white Catholic voters prefer Trump. Only about a third are supporting Clinton. However, Catholic voters overall are more divided, 49 Trump and 42 Clinton. Religiously unaffiliated voters prefer Clinton to Trump, 65-24. It's the kind of thing that they drill down on that other people don't bother until exit polls.
Okay. I'm surprised they call at all. I would think they would sit at the phones and say, God will provide. They'll call us.
Well, we already, what can I say? It's interesting stuff. 9 in 10 Democratic voters say they're supporting Clinton. 86% Republican voters say they're supporting Trump. Indies prefer Trump to Clinton by 44-36. But 1 in 5 independent voters report they'd be supporting a third party. So, big gender gap too. Female voters prefer Clinton, 25 points. Male voters, Trump leads 13 points. Now, remember, there's more women than men voting.
Right. Well.
Okay, white female voters, Clinton, 52-41. Trump leads Clinton among white male voters, 57-26. I don't have it right at my fingertips. I'll try to find it, but Ron Brownstein was also looking at the non-college versus college whites. That's one of the things that he likes to follow during this whole election season here, and he's got some good observations, having drilled down deeper than I had a chance to. Real Donald Trump, Twitter handle, plus 24 non-college whites, minus 10 with college-educated whites. Okay, and a minus 59 Trump is with minorities, latter nearing 2012 Obama range.
Still not even there. Wow.
But getting there.
Yeah, I
right?
mean,
Remember, we worry about the minority vote. It's coming around because we're getting closer to the election. People are late deciders. I don't know why this is such a tough concept. Now, here's a fascinating one. This one is from Emerson. Emerson College has a club, and the club does polling, and the polling is done all by landline. So take it with a grain of salt.
Wow.
But they have 4 state polls out today.
Yeah.
Okay. Clinton and Trump. Trump is a point ahead in Florida, 45-44 landline only. So even the old people are pretty much tied. Nevada, 43-43.
Okay.
Rhode Island, 52 Clinton, 32. None of this is surprising. We know Florida's going to be close. We know Emerson's wrong and tends to be wrong leaning toward the Republican because they only do landline, despite they're trying to correct it by just fudging.
Oh.
But this 4th state is the interesting one, Arizona.
Mm-hmm.
Clinton 44, Trump 42.
Wow.
Landline only.
That's...
Republican lead.
There's some spry elderly folks out there. It's a dry climate. Doesn't affect their gout and arthritis the same way. They're able to get to the phone faster, and yet. And then a new Politico poll out today from Florida, North Florida University. North Florida. Oh.
University of North Florida.
Okay, that's Alabama.
And F's for you, right? So, limited by Johnson and Stein, Clinton still tops Trump in New Florida poll. Head-to-head, she's got a 7-point lead, 47-40. And then add Johnson and Stein, it's a 3-point lead.
Okay.
That may or may not be true, and Johnson and Stein may or may not last. Point being, the UNF poll shows that regardless, Clinton leads by 3 points or so. Remember, Florida's always close. But right now it's looking close with Clinton winning. And like you said, if she wins Florida, then that's the ball game right there.
Okay, well, I'll take it. I hope that she does. University of North Florida is in Jacksonville. So more Georgia than Alabama.
Right. There you go. So other things that are happening, there's a big story Kurt Eichenwald has out that I haven't gotten to yet about Trump's personal finances.
Yeah.
So he's doing a pretty good job on that. But I have to throw in a couple of things I think I mentioned the other day. The Fairleigh Dickinson poll with Clinton up by 10. But there's this really interesting story. Oh, I just came across this. This was a Twitter picture. It's a screen capture of CNN. And it just gets back to that Pence-Kane thing that I was talking about.
Okay.
It's Jake Tapper talking with Scott Walker. That's the picture.
Scott Walker. Okay.
But the Chiron says, "Wait, race for the White House. Pence denies Trump said things he said."
So are we getting the pictures wrong?
Which
white
gets
guy?
to the point of what I was trying to say about how the debate plays out.
Yeah.
I have to send this to you because it's like really great.
I think I saw that picture. I didn't read the Chiron, which is odd. I think I just saw the picture. I actually kind of was noting they kind of look alike, the two of them. And
Yes,
the hair
yes.
is funny.
Well, you may not have seen it with the Chiron, but this is the one with the Chiron. So let me just
All right.
pull it up and send it to you. Not that one, but this one. Here it is. Boom.
Chiron.
There it is for you. And
Okay.
you see the Chiron, big letters. Pence denies Trump says things he said. That's the point. And if that's what you're talking about after the debate, you tell me who won.
Yeah. Why?
Anyway, the thing I wanted to highlight was this fascinating Jonathan Martin and Alex Burns story in the New York Times. Donald Trump's slip in polls has GOP worried about Congress. Everybody who's doing polls is noticing that Clinton's actually doing rather well these days. And
Well,
what does
there you
that
go.
mean?
I don't like a double rainbow.
Yeah,
What does it
like
mean?
after aggravating myself by watching Morning Joe this morning just to see how they would play it, knowing the polls were good for Clinton, they of course played it as all
Dumbo.
Trump needs, because it's so volatile, is to have a good debate on Sunday night, and we're back to being tied. That's a direct quote from Joe Scarborough,
Yes,
who's
you are
a political
correct,
moron, by the way, I should point out.
That's all we need.
The race has been incredibly steady. Just take a look at the Huffington Post pollster head-to-head polls. I mean, Clinton has been ahead the entire time. We have a month left. So is the race over? It's not over till November 8th, but Trump's not winning.
Doesn't look good for him.
Anyway, this story from the New York Times. Donald Trump's support has plunged across the swing state map over the last 10 days, wiping out his political recovery from September, which wasn't real anyway, and threatening to undo weeks of Republican gains in the battle for control of Congress. For his party, Mr. Trump's reversal in fortune comes at the worst possible moment, having muted their criticism of Mr. Trump in hopes he could at least run competitively through Election Day. Republicans must decide in the next few days, rather than weeks, whether to seek distance from his wobbly campaign. Should Mr. Trump falter badly in his second debate with Hillary Clinton on Sunday in St. Louis,
Yes.
Republican
He should.
congressional candidates may take it as a cue to flee openly from their nominee, said two senior Republicans involved at high levels of the campaign who spoke on condition of anonymity because they were not authorized to discuss private party strategy. So obviously they interviewed Trump's daughter and his son-in-law.
Cue to
Mr.
flee
Trump,
openly strategy.
Mr. Trump has already slipped perceptibly in public polls, trailing widely this week in Pennsylvania by smaller margins in Florida and North Carolina. 3 states he cannot afford to lose, but, folks, he's going to lose them. But private polling by both parties shows an even more precipitous drop, especially among independent voters, moderate Republicans, and women, according to a dozen strategists from both parties who spoke on the condition of anonymity because the data was confidential and they hadn't finished their joint lunch yet.
Okay.
They must have had this giant lunch where all 12 of them talked together and said, yeah, we agree.
I guess so. Before it was even done, they were leaking to the press. That's pretty good. That's
Right
very
now,
impressive.
now they got a name. Liesl, Liesl, Liesl Hickey, a Republican strategist involved in several House races in swing states, said she was dismayed by a sudden exodus of independent voters in more diverse parts of the country. They're really starting to pull away from Trump, she said, describing his soaring unpopularity with independents as entering uncharted territory.
Okay.
And then you can just go on and on and on, and that's really what it's about. So again, tell me who won that debate.
I don't know. They're actually in the business of charting that territory, but whatever. It's charted. Okay. But I'm sure a game changer on Sunday. Everyone will switch over from Sunday night football, over to the debate, and certainly he'll land a haymaker. No doubt about it, and all minds will change. I can't imagine what in the world he could possibly say that would swing that many voters at this point. I mean, unless she says, it's all true, I am deathly ill, and collapses and dies.
This is from the Pundit Roundup today. This is a little piece in CNN. Caught my eye. Trump's Atlantic City finances tell the story of his business losses. And the pull quote there is, "We made the decision he would be worth more alive to us than dead," says real estate attorney of Trump.
Well, that's
which helps to explain why he's still in business. Not because he's a brilliant businessman, but because the people who were financing him figured they couldn't afford the losses.
Yeah, that's amazing. Too big to fail is Donald Trump, except he's not big. He was failing. Didn't happen. Wow.
And this is not a knock on young voters, because it would be true perhaps of older voters as well. But Philip Bump did a little story here about generic versus named candidates. He says, perhaps the most effective thing the major party candidates could do for their chances in November would be to change their name from Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump to generic Democrat and ordinary Republican. It's probably a bit of an exaggeration, but not too much. A quarter of young voters told CNN they'd never heard of Tim Kaine, even though in the Fairleigh Dickinson poll they preferred him to Trump by 22 points.
Okay.
I don't care who he is. He's not Trump.
Yeah, well, I guess that's always the case. That's not surprising. That's the one thing that's consistent between this race and others. This is the one that doesn't break ground.
Right. Here's another polling gem here, also from the Pundit Roundup, if you're scrolling down and keeping up. Gen Forward, which I guess, is that part of Next Gen and Tom Steyer's shop? I don't know. Maybe. Anyway, they did a poll. Clinton's lead with millennials. African Americans plus 72, Asian Americans plus 65, Latinos plus 55, whites plus 10.
Yeah.
Okay, and Will Jordan from YouGov chimes in for Obama in 2012. African Americans plus 72 right now. For Obama, it was plus 83. Latinos plus 55 right now for Clinton. For Obama, it was plus 49. And whites plus 10 right now with millennials. For Obama, it was minus 7.
Aha. Well, we got to get some.
So she's doing fine.
Anybody know any whites?
Kids are all right. Leave them alone.
Talk to them. Wow. Doing pretty well there.
Here's another one. This is Latino USA, and they're doing Latino vote share. Bush 2035. Bush 2004, 40. McCain, 31.
Yes.
Romney, 27. Trump, you want to guess?
Latinos. 20?
10.6.
10.6. Oh.
That's pretty good. Huh?
Yeah, that it really is all falling apart.
It is. I mean, you look at this, and it's falling apart before our eyes, and we have to go through with this fantasy football thing of, but if he just wins the debate on Sunday, everything changes and it's tied.
Well,
and
Joe,
so, why do I get so annoyed? Because America gets their news from television, and the least you could do is get the facts right. I know. But, I still think that there's an obligation of media to at least try. And when I look at this, I just can't tell the difference between the really that stupid or the deliberately misleading. Armando thinks it's both, and he might be right there. But it's just really annoying.
Yeah.
Now, the guests are supposed to come on and say you're an idiot, and most of the time they do, but then again, they get to pick who the guests are. True.
There's only a certain number of people they want to hear that they're an idiot from.
Right. Sarah Kendzior, Sarah Kendzior, Kendzior, Sarah Kendzior, very good writer, Globe and Mail. Kaine versus Pence, when Midwestern nice meets Midwestern lies.
Oh, Pence. I thought you said pants. What's it got against pants?
That's Mike Pence. Americans are not used to a calm liar. We're used to lies being screamed, chanted, or told as a joke. Lies wrapped in bravado and bluster of Mr. Trump are not accustomed to lies uttered calmly by a purported man of faith who appeared to reconcile his role in the vicious Trump campaign by pretending it never happened. Mr. Pence spoke favorably. She spells favorably funny. She must be Canadian here. Of a Mr. Trump that does not resemble Mr. Trump, a fantasy candidate who never said what Mr. Trump said or did what Mr. Trump did. In the end, When pressed on Mr. Trump's proclaimed desire to punish women who have had abortions, Mr. Pence finally cracked, admitting Mr. Trump had said this but chalking it up to being unpolished.
I see.
Mr. Pence is a pro-life extremist who once tried to get a law passed forcing women who miscarry to have funerals for fetuses. The blow was blocked by a federal judge. Mr. Pence, likely, had no objection to the content of Mr. Trump's statement, but he knows how to cloak brutal policies in Midwestern nice, a skill his running mate lacks. In that brief moment, Mr. Pence seemed resigned to Mr. Trump's crudeness and cruelty. It's hard to say who won the debate. Mr. Kaine stammered and interrupted, but remained essentially honest. Mr. Pence lied calmly and well.
Uh-huh.
And again, the day after the debate, I think I said to you, Pence is an ex-media person, so for him to look directly in the camera and lie is second nature to him.
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean he won because he smoothly lied as opposed to roughly telling the truth.
Yeah. Well, right. It was a rather amazing thing, and it was healthy debate the last couple of days. At least I saw a lot of, because I live on the liberal side of things anyway, but a lot of debate over should you even be allowed to say that somebody wins the debate if you know they weren't telling the truth? Isn't that an automatic loss? And competitive debate, I would imagine you would lose pretty badly if the judges heard you
make everything up on the spot.
Yeah. But we don't do that. It's interesting. In actual debate where you learn to debate in high school, college, what have you, the judges, I guess, are fact checkers. Here, though, the moderators, no, we cannot do that. Sorry. It's only a race for president. College kids have this stuff judged, and a winner is declared. We just say, well, the American people will make up their minds how they feel about that. I will tell you how that went, and we'll attempt to tell you the opposite, and we'll tell you, well, we had two winners. Everybody's a winner here. One on substance, one on style. Can you imagine winning college debate on style? That would be awesome. What wouldn't they do at that point? Just light off, I guess, pyrotechnics and say, the other guy sucks. I won. I'm the college debating champion. I beat the crap out of Ted Cruz.
Right. So anyway, somebody points out to me online, maybe there was a real reason that Trump was in Arizona recently.
Yes.
They were saying, what the heck is a Republican doing in Arizona? He went and did a rally in Arizona. What was he doing there? What a waste of time. And we all thought, well, it's because, if Clinton spends a little time in Arizona, they're forcing late in the election in October, for a Republican to be defending Arizona, keeps them away from Florida, where Trump should camp out and live because he has to have that to win.
He does live.
But of course, if he camps out in Florida, then he'll lose North Carolina. If he stays in North Carolina, he's going to wind up, maybe even losing Ohio, which is now ahead for Clinton in the latest polls. So he's kind of screwed whatever he does. But maybe there was a reason he was in Arizona. Emerson says he's losing.
Yeah. Well,
pretty fascinating, huh?
It is amazing. I mean, and it speaks to the time element of the strategy, right? If you spend time, if Clinton spends time in Arizona early and nobody knows exactly why she's wasting her time with it, although even then we were thinking, oh, well, she's actually pretty close for Arizona. But you do that early so that the other guy has to respond to you, but by the time he gets around to scheduling the response, it's really late, and it's a critical decision. Do I go to Arizona or this one or that one or the other one? It's interesting how that has to play out. And the time is just worth more closer to the election. So if you're the first actor to draw the other guy out.
Right. Our friend Dana Houle taught me this a long, long, long time ago. The most precious commodity for a candidate is his time.
Yes.
You can always get more money, but you can't make more time. So where they spend their time is crucial. And therefore, in a real campaign, there's nothing that is left to chance. Everything is scripted. If you're in Portland, Maine, there's a reason. And the reason was he was trying to use the media market in Portland, Maine to get Maine 2, because maybe he can pick up an electoral vote, and maybe he will. That's why he went there. It's not that he's going to win Maine, but that maybe he could do that. There's a reason for why you're in Arizona. There's a reason for why he goes anywhere. Now, it is a campaign strategy to build big rallies. It costs money. We talked about this with Bernie versus Hillary. Hillary's decided not to. Hillary doesn't do yard signs.
Right.
It's a strategy. It's not an accident. Now, maybe a bad strategy, maybe a bad decision, but that's what they do. Trump does rallies for a variety of reasons, including getting the publicity from doing rallies, getting to claim that, I had 10,000 people, she has 1,000, I'm winning.
Right.
And it's part of his strategy. Interestingly, I also saw a very intelligent commentary, because it was from Dana, about newspaper endorsements. Right? Clinton's getting all the newspaper endorsements.
Yes.
What does that mean?
I don't know.
Right. I mean, who reads newspapers and who votes based on what your newspaper told you to? And yet, there's a couple of reasons to take the trouble to do this. And one of them is once you get a newspaper endorsement from an unusual one like the Dallas Morning News or a San Diego paper or or Colorado paper or wherever it is or the USA Today that normally doesn't do this or the Atlantic, which is the latest one. The third time that the Atlantic has actually endorsed a president. I think the first one was Lincoln. Oh. And the second one was Johnson over Goldwater. And this is the third, Clinton over Trump. And it's not that Dave Weigel was making fun of this, So I went to this blue-collar bar, and we were all talking about the Atlantic endorsement here over a beer. No, that's not how it works. The way it works is the campaign takes that and uses it in their campaign literature.
Yes.
And so it's valuable. We now have endorsements from papers that don't usually endorse, and the last one they did was Goldwater Johnson. I mean, that's gold, and it's free.
Yes, well,
and that's why people do it. It's not that that's going to change the election or it's a game changer, but there's value in it, is what I'm trying to say. And the value is not because the readers of the paper are going to listen to the paper and do what the paper says. It's because you use it in advertising to make the point that even people who normally don't endorse, including conservative papers that haven't endorsed a Democrat in 150 years, are now endorsing Clinton, and that means something.
Hmm. It does, and it's an interesting story. That's some collection of elections, by the way. We will endorse when we feel like the United States is on the brink of civil war. We will endorse in the case of,
potential nuclear guy
potential
on the
nuclear war in the Daisy ad, and then Donald Trump, I guess you're seeing what I'm seeing.
Yeah, exactly. So all interesting, and I really appreciate the sharp eyes out there who point these things out. Anyway, that's my summary for today. I don't know what you got, but that's what I got.
I also don't know. But I'm willing to find out. Yes.
You don't know, but you got an hour and 10 minutes to fill, so let's find out what it is. How do we do that? By listening. This is Greg Dworkin speaking with my friend David Waldman, Kagro in the morning. And I so thank you all for listening, tuning in, download podcast, however you do it. I don't know how your numbers been looking lately in terms of people tuning in. I would think with the election might have gone up a bit.
Yeah.
I don't know if you pay attention to things like that.
I try not to because it takes time, and I would rather be asleep. But no, we do have an interesting bump in, but it's been long lasting, so that's good. It's the last 2 months or so, things have been trending up, swinging on the way up, and I hope it's.
That's because I've been fighting with Armando. You know what that is.
True. Those are big days when we're able to advertise that. That is true. Yeah, so it's looking good. Libsyn is the only one that I get really good, steady metrics on of any size that's worth anything. And that has been trending up too. So Libsyn serves up about now we're actually above 3,000 downloads daily just from Libsyn. And it used to hover. It used to be a good day to make it over the 1,500 mark, and so it's doubled in probably the last 6 to 8 months, and the last 2 or 3 months have been pretty consistently 3,000 plus, and sometimes spiking, if we have a particularly good show somehow, I guess, spiking up to near 4,000. So nice. It's working.
Yep. Okay, anyway, take care, and I'll talk to you tomorrow.
All right, and it will be well worth it. 4,000 people say so.
Take care.
Okay.
Bye.
Take care. You do the same, and moving on. Okay. Let's see. I have a bunch of windows open. That must mean something. Let's take a look at what they are. Oh, yes. Well, one was on the University of North Florida, which I checked on. That's Jacksonville, as I mentioned. Just thought it was interesting. I left it open because I found it fun. The mascot of University of North Florida. Anybody? I don't know, do they play basketball? I don't believe I've ever seen them in the NCAA tournament. I think I have to pay money now because I said NCAA tournament. I say, or you can't say March Madness either. So that's $2. I'm going to have to pay them, I guess. But that's the way most people come to learn the mascots of obscure schools, or the obscure mascots of otherwise well-known schools, perhaps. Ozzy the Osprey. Ozzy the Osprey is the mascot of the University of North Florida. So that's interesting. I just have the Wikipedia thing on it as well, but I Googled it, and you know how they put the Wikipedia entry sort of reformatted over on the right-hand side there. I don't know, or some conglomeration of all the bits and pieces that they glean from across the web. The University of North Florida is a public university in Jacksonville, Florida, a member institution of the State University System of Florida, et cetera, et cetera. And it says located in UNF, University of North Florida, golf complex at the Haight Learning Center. Haight, H-A-Y-T. I hope it's not hate learning. I hate learning. I'll go to the University of North Florida. They won't make me do any. I don't know. I'm not sure what that's supposed to mean. But the university is located in the golf complex? How could that be? Or maybe that's where they dropped the pin on the map. Is that all? What is it? The Haight Golf Learning Center, also known as the Golfplex, is the golf facility on the University of North Florida campus. Why do you have one? I guess it speaks to the academics. It's a public course, though, and the practice facility is open to the public and for the use of the North Florida Ospreys golf team. Are they good? I would imagine that the university of any university in Florida probably fields a pretty good golf team, right? They can play around year round. Why so much focus on this golf center? I have no idea. Maybe that's just an idiosyncrasy of the search engines, perhaps. That could be it. But if anybody has any actual familiarity with the University of North Florida, if you can call and say, they're just known for golf. That's what they do. That's all. It's hardly even have classes there. Then let us know. Otherwise, if this is an unfair representation of the University of Northern Florida, then I apologize to you fighting ospreys. Okay. Let's see. There's a million other directions we could go. Really, honestly, no time at all to be wasted talking about the University of North Florida. Move on. Daniel Dale's list. I guess I might as well run down it, which could be a daily feature. The 15 false things Donald Trump said yesterday. I'll tell you what the other ones are. Again, some of more consequence, some of less. Falsely said homicides are up nearly 50% in Washington, D.C., and more than 60% in Baltimore. Now, is it a lie? Those numbers were true last year, but not this year. I don't hold that one against him too much, except that I just don't mention cities. You don't know anything about what's going on in any of them. Homicides are actually down in both cities in 2016. D.C.'s by 12% as of yesterday. A highly technical point, but it exists nonetheless. 2, he falsely claimed he was endorsed by part of the U.S. government. That would be ICE. He says ICE, the Immigration, Customs, etc. It's not etc.E, but it might as well be. Immigration, Customs, etc. ICE, 2 days ago, ICE, the first time they've ever endorsed. ICE endorsed me. Trump was, in fact, endorsed by an ICE employees union, not the agency itself. And also, technically, it was more than a week ago, not 2 days ago. But, yeah, all right. I mean, you're being a little bit pedantic there, Daniel. 3, falsely described an investigation into the State Department. Our State Department, mostly under the watch of crooked Hillary Clinton, misplaced or lost $6 billion in taxpayer funds. The Inspector General who did this probe explicitly says it is not true that the actual money went missing, unlike with Donald Trump, where $916 million went poof. It's simply that contract files were incomplete or missing. I guess on contracts worth $6 billion, there was some paperwork missing. That's a very different story. Number 4, he falsely said the Federal Reserve Chief, Janet Yellen, quote, knows she's supposed to be inching them, that is interest rates, up, And she's not doing it. Trump was alleging with no evidence that Yellen was keeping interest rates low to help Democrats. By all expert accounts, she's keeping them low because she's the chairman of the Fed and that's what they do. She believes this is best for the economy. Number 5, he falsely said of Iran, in less than 10 years now, they will have nuclear weapons. Remember, that one is, most estimates are 11 to 15 years. Number 6, Clinton's for open borders. She's not. That's dumb. 7, falsely said, thousands of refugees being admitted with no ways to screen them. No, refugees are put through an extensive screening system. 8, falsely said our annual trade deficit with the world is nearly $800 billion. Overall, the U.S. trade deficit last year was $532 billion. It was $746 billion when only goods were counted, not trades, or services, trade rather, I should say, at which the U.S. excels, Daniel says. Number 9, falsely said Hillary Clinton basically accuses our police of all being racist. This is a significant mischaracterization of Clinton's debate comments in which she said, I think implicit bias is a problem for everyone, not just police. I think, unfortunately, too many of us in our great country jump to conclusions about each other, like the conclusion that Hillary Clinton accuses all police of being racist, for instance. Number 10 out of the 15 falsely explained that the pronunciation of Nevada is Nevada. He says, nobody says it the other way. It has to be Nevada. And Nevadans disagree. Number 11, an amazing statistic is there are more than 2 million criminal aliens with convictions in the country right now. This figure, actually 1.9 million, includes legal immigrants who also happen to have convictions. By one credible estimate, the number of illegal immigrants with convictions is about 820,000. So that's not more than 2 million. It's not even more than 1 million. Number 12, Hillary, wow, only 13 of the 15 are visible? We'll have to have a talk with them about that. Yeah, right. Well, out of the 13 visible ones, Hillary Clinton put her public office up for sale. There is no evidence Clinton did or tried to, and what would you even look for? And number 13, falsely said 58% of African American youth don't have jobs. This figure was correct early in the year, but it has now fallen to 55% regardless. It's also misleading as it counts high school students as not having jobs. Well, that is misleading. I wouldn't necessarily ding them for being off, saying 58 versus 55, especially if it was 58 earlier in the year. But okay, that's on you, Daniel. I don't have too much of a problem with it. It's nice to see it documented, nonetheless. All right, other things we have in pocket that are worth discussing. Well, all of it is worth discussing. What can we really make a show out of? Oh, well, let's see. There's definitely a few things I saved from yesterday which have since been buried that I want to scroll down and see if we can find. Where did we put this one? Now, here's one that I really thought we had put aside, and now that it's going to require my searching Twitter for it. But interesting note from yesterday when they were still talking about the $916 million losses claimed on Donald Trump's 1995 federal income tax returns. Someone taking note of exactly how big is this number. Well, it's $916 million. That's not hard to grasp. But what is more interesting is that it was almost a full 2% of all of the business losses claimed by everyone who filed income taxes in 1995. Donald Trump lost 2% by himself of all the money claimed as capital losses in 1995. That is pretty damn astonishing. That would raise some red flags for me. I could see here is the only thing that makes me believe that he was ever under audit. Although, really, honestly, a guy like this who would make a claim like that ought to be under audit all the time. Okay. There it is. Michael Luo, New York Times reporter, right? And he was the one that did that really great piece it's probably going on like 2-3 years ago now, that the Times took up what amounted to a sort of a gun fail type investigation, reviewing the coroner's reports and death certificates and of accidental shooting victims and trying to see exactly what sort of error rate there was in classifying the numbers of kids accidentally shot to death. And they found more or less what I found. They did a much better, more thorough, and more scientific job of it. And I did a hackish job of it, just collecting the stories where if the story said that the kid was accidentally shot to death, mostly I bought it, depending on whether or not it had to meet my criteria. And accidentally shooting somebody to death, in my book, is not doing a drive-by and I was meaning to shoot this guy and I shot him and or missed, but accidentally shot this child. It has to be either some time during which you did not even intend to fire a gun, or that you were firing a gun for very specific non-violent purposes, like target shooting, and you accidentally shot a child instead. And I found pretty quickly in my own investigation, and this has kept me going all these years, that for years gun enthusiasts insisted that, and with not without reason, that only, and this is kind of weird to say, only 60 to 65 children under the age of 15 were accidentally shot to death each year. That didn't seem to bother them any. That was a number that they could dismiss by saying, well, it's only 60 or so. Only it isn't. Not that they are incapable of dismissing the real number, but I pretty quickly found in my own just collecting news articles that it was closer to double that rate, which also, statistically they would say, still, given the number of kids there are in the United States, that's not so bad. That's, spoilage rate, basically, is how they view it. But, they only 62. Well, it's not 62. It's actually twice that number. And when you get to over 100 kids killed completely by accident that way, it does start to make a different kind of a dent. Anyway, Michael Luo did a fantastic piece. It was part of a team that put that one together in the New York Times, probably 2013, 2014, pretty early on. All right. Let's see. Oh, and here's a good question, just to get back to the tax issue. Parleo asks, and I think he gets right to it here, are we sure that Trump actually lost that money, or did he just claim it on a form? No, absolutely not sure that he actually lost that money. That would be an exceptional amount of money to lose, and it's, in fact, so huge, really. I mean, 2% of total business losses for everybody in the United States is pretty amazing. That's the kind of money that you would actually expect to see in somebody else's pocket somewhere else. I mean, I guess, granted, you could distribute it among any number of people, so there's not going to be any one corresponding person with whom Trump works in a zero-sum context. But, man, that's a lot of money. We're not sure at all, and there's actually quite a bit of good writing on that topic, which I guess makes as good a segue topic as any, if I can find which one it is. They're so... well, here, the latest one I saw, I think Kate Sherrill sent me this one last night saying, here we are. She was forwarding a Jeff Jarvis tweet saying that this was an excellent Josh Barro work on how Donald Trump could have lost other people's money and claimed it as his $916 million loss. And I believe this is the piece here. And let's take a look. Maybe this will answer some of the questions. There are like 6 or 7 speculative pieces about it, and almost none of them think that the real reason he listed $916 million in losses is that he had $916 million and lost it. So, not misplaced it, but lost it in business. And even so, I mean, for it to be on his personal taxes versus business, I don't know. I mean, I know he blurs lines, but really. Okay. Here's the best theory we've seen, says Josh Barrow, of how Trump paid so little tax. At a rally Tuesday in Arizona, also pronounced Arizona, Donald Trump sought to blame Hillary Clinton for his own low tax bills. How do you like that? He asked, after years of failure, she complains about how I've used tax laws of this country to my benefit. Then I ask a simple question. Why didn't she ever try to change those laws so I couldn't use them? Well, that would be really, talk about your overbearing use of the federal government. I mean, if it was literally changing them so that you couldn't use them, we can't do that. That's, well, bill of attainder, really. And we don't do those. But why didn't we change laws so that you couldn't write off all your business losses, all your capital losses? Well, because normally we want to encourage people to take risks with capital and not punish them twice, essentially, for the losses. But I must say, I don't think it was anybody's intention that, I guess they didn't bother capping it because they didn't think, who in the world loses $916 million on their personal income taxes in a single year? Nobody. So, I guess I can't blame anybody for not having written a ceiling into it. It's just you were the first person willing to tell anybody that they had lost that much money personally in a single year. Leave it to you. Okay. Well, back to the article. Maybe Clinton didn't just try to change laws Trump used, but actually got them changed when she was in the Senate in 2002. Oh my, look at this. According to a Tuesday column by Lee Shepard in the tax industry publication Tax Notes, Trump may have benefited greatly in the 1990s from a tax loophole related to forgiven debts, a loophole that would have allowed him to deduct business losses on his personal income tax return, even if those losses were actually borne by banks that loaned Trump money and never got it back. And that this is a great follow-up on some earlier theories that I never read on the air, but basically you start thinking about the different ways you can structure dumb stuff like this. There was another theory out there that Trump had these enormous losses, and so he started another dummy entity. Any entity he's involved with is, of course, a dummy entity, but by which we mean, a shell company. And so a shell company, a dummy entity which he controls, but is named something very different, for instance, just to try to throw people off the scent. Although you could certainly name it Donald Trump Dummy Entity 1 LLC if you want to, but I don't know why you would want to. And have that business entity, and this is one of the problems of incorporation and just, creating artificial people that can do business in this country, but it's got all sorts of beneficial attributes as well. But anyway, you start a dummy corporation, and it's controlled by you, and so as chairman of the board of the dummy corporation, you say, you know what I think would be a great business decision, and again, you're protected by the business decision rule in most cases here, although this really cuts close to the line. I think a great business decision would be to speculate in debt, as people sometimes do. I will buy debt for pennies on the dollar, and normally then you say, and I will try and collect that debt. I will buy the right to collect the debt in the debtor's, well, not the debtor's stead, but I will buy debt from people who are owed money. And rather than try and collect it all, as they would try to do, I will pay them cash up front. They'll be happy. It's pennies on the dollar. And then I'll try to collect it. And whatever gets collected, I get. Or however you want to work out the deal. Sometimes some of the money goes back to the original, not debtor, but payee, the beneficiary of the debt instrument. I forget my terminology here now. Anyway, so you set up a dummy corporation to buy Donald Trump's debt, except it's bought by a dummy corporation that's controlled by Donald Trump. And then now you have a situation where another company owns $916 million of Donald Trump's debt. And Donald Trump says, well, I lost $916 million and I'm trying to get it back, but then I accepted this buyout for 1 penny, so I still have tremendous personal losses. And then the dummy corporation says, all I own is $916 million worth of debt. And if I never try to collect it, and why would I? Because my debtor is Donald Trump. So forget it. I'm not going to charge myself, and I have no interest in paying myself, and I can't either. So then the business entity says, look, now I have $916 million in losses. Something very fishy about that, don't you think? I'm probably not explaining it correctly. But it got me thinking, well, clearly there's some kind of weird structuring thing going on here. Nobody loses $1 billion in cash in a single year on bad business decisions. I guess possibly, maybe Bill Gates could lose $1 billion in a year, but that's because he's got 50 of them. So who knows? Anyway, back to the people who have gathered their thoughts ahead of time. According to the Tuesday column by Lee Shepard, right, Trump may have benefited greatly in the 1990s from a tax loophole related to forgiven debts, a loophole that would have allowed him to deduct business losses on his personal income tax return, even if those losses were actually borne by banks that loaned Trump money and never got it back. People often use loophole, the word loophole, to refer to tax deductions they don't like, but this one was a loophole in the true sense of the word, a tax break created by legislative accident. This loophole was the subject of a 2001 Supreme Court case, Gitlitz, Gitlitz, Gitlitz versus Commissioner, the IRS Commissioner, in which the IRS argued the relevant tax law could not possibly have meant what it appeared to say, which was that business owners could, in some cases, deduct losses they had not actually borne. After the IRS lost that case, the loophole was closed by the Job Creation and Worker Assistance Act of 2002, a bill that then Senator Hillary Clinton voted for and President George W. Bush signed. But that law only stopped taxpayers from using the loophole going forward. They were still allowed to benefit from tax losses they had booked through prior years, such as 1995, which was, in fact, a prior year, prior to 2002. Here's how the loophole could have allowed Trump to create a paper tax loss that he could use to offset his real income for over a decade, avoiding hundreds of millions of dollars in taxes in the process. Those hundreds of millions of dollars that Eric Trump feels certain his dad totally, definitely paid. In general, if someone cancels a debt that you owe them, you are supposed to count the amount forgiven as income. Right? I owe you $10,000. You say, never mind. I just made $10,000 in income. That's taxable income for me. Let's say you buy a building, for instance, in their view, worth $1 million, using $200,000 in equity and an $800,000 mortgage, just to complicate things. Then the building is destroyed, for whatever reason. And you have no insurance, for whatever reason. Now your investment is worthless, and the bank gives up all attempts to collect on the mortgage. The building's been destroyed. Okay, we're not going to get anything with this guy. Your loss for tax purposes should generally be $200,000, not $1 million. Why? You used $200 in equity and then borrowed $800,000 from the bank. The bank says, we're never going to get that money back. We're not even going to try. How much money did you lose? You lost $200,000. Trump says, I lost $1 million. One of the big mysteries about Trump's 1995 taxes is how he managed to run up such a large loss, when so many of the losses related to his business implosion of the early 1990s ended up being borne not by himself but by banks and other creditors that forgave Trump's debts or otherwise didn't get paid back. John Hempton of Bronte Capital has drawn some attention for his theory, and one of the ones I read was his, that Trump could have engaged in debt parking. Good. There'll be a better explanation of this, I think. In essence, instead of Trump's debts being canceled, an entity controlled by Trump could have bought the debt for pennies on the dollar and then held it without either forgiving it or trying to collect on it. We just own it. We just do. With the debt suspended in limbo like this, Hempton suggested, Trump could have claimed there was no debt forgiveness to report. In Hempton's theory, this would have allowed Trump to deduct from his taxes the full amount of losses related to his businesses, including those that really ended up being borne by the creditors who sold their debt for pennies on the dollar. The main problem with Hempton's theory is that this strategy is illegal. If it struck you as, hey, that's not kosher, it isn't. The IRS is not perfect, but it is pretty good at identifying and disallowing such tax strategies, especially when they involve huge sums of money. And this is important to realize, right? They don't catch everything. Sometimes if it's called to their attention, they can turn around and go back, I guess, and then audit, and maybe that's why he doesn't want to release these things. But what if the loophole at issue in the Gitlitz case allowed Trump to deduct his business's huge loss, without needing to report the associated debt forgiveness as income? That is, what if Trump found a perfectly legal way to take credit on his personal income taxes for losing money that he didn't really lose? That tax notes column by Shepard, a prominent tax commentator who previously practiced tax law, is behind a paywall, but it provides the best theory I've seen to date of how Trump could have come to run up such a big loss on paper. So I'm providing a summary below, and I'm hoping you'll bear with me. This is Josh Barrow. This is Josh Barrow speaking. Hi, I'm the worst reporter ever. I don't know why I felt compelled to say that. This is Josh Barrow's writing, of course. I'm reading it. I'm David Waldman. How are you? Okay. The Gitlitz loophole, the one Congress closed in 2002, was related to the taxation of S corporations. The S corporation is a corporate form for businesses that have only one or very few owners, right? Often they are small businesses, but they don't have to be. S corporations do not pay taxes directly. Instead, they pass their profits and losses through to their owners, who pay tax on those profits or deduct those losses on their individual income tax returns, sole proprietorships, usually. When an S corporation loses money, its owners, in general, may deduct those losses against other income they report on their tax returns. However, there are supposed to be rules in place to ensure that taxpayers cannot deduct losses from an S corporation that exceed what they invested in the S corporation in the first place, plus the prior profits they have earned from the S corporation. So I guess you couldn't say, otherwise you'd say, I just formed an S corporation. I'm bidding for a contract that I saw up for bids to provide the military with $10 billion worth of fighter jets. All I've got here are Legos, but the point is I didn't get the contract. That's a $10 billion loss to me. So, I'll start writing it off on my taxes. I didn't really think I was going to get this contract, but that's the way I view it. And after all I did, I invested in these Legos. So, I mean, it's possible that the United States government might want fighter planes built out of Legos. Bad business decision on my part, I guess. But looks like I'm out that $10 billion I was thinking I was going to get. Well, no, you can't do that. You would have had to have, I guess, at a minimum, geared up to where you had invested enough in the company that you could convince the IRS that you actually had a legitimate shot at it. And second of all, of course, you can't just say, well, I didn't get that business, so that's a business loss to me. I mean, that's a stupid exaggeration that I made up off the top of my head. But the idea here is you can't say, you can't just claim all these sorts of losses out of thin air. Or to use their example, if you had a building for real and your business bought the building and then the building was destroyed, you can't say it was full of gold bars. And so that's a $10 gazillion loss there. And I'm going to start writing that off. Well, if you could prove that you invested the amount of money necessary to fill it with gold bars, well, then that's one thing. But without that proof, No. Not unlike insurance and receipts on that one, I guess. Anyway, here's a better explanation. Josh Barrow provides it. Let's say you invest $100,000 into an S corporation, of which you are the sole owner. In the first year, the S corporation earns profits of $50,000, of which you enjoy 100%. That is to say, you take them all. I don't know whether you really derive 100% of your enjoyment from the $50,000. That's not the issue. You've invested $100,000. You made profits of $50,000. You get them all because you're the sole proprietor of the business, and it's an S corporation. In the next year, the S corporation, let's say, loses money. Then you can deduct these losses from your taxes, but not to the extent that they would exceed your investment plus profits, $150,000. Or at least that's how it's supposed to work. Shepard sketches out a situation in which an S corporation owned by Trump is the general partner in his casino businesses, okay, which went into bankruptcy in 1991 and 1992. That S corporation likely lost a great deal of money. It also likely owed debts related to the casino businesses that it could not pay and that were canceled as part of the bankruptcies and or as part of Trump's subsequent out-of-bankruptcy restructurings, which continued into 1995. Ordinarily, canceled debts would count as taxable income to the S corporation. But if the S corporation were insolvent, which you would have expected it to be if its sole assets were its equity interests in Trump's bankrupt casinos, the debt cancellation would have been excluded from its taxable income. This exclusion makes sense if you think about it, about the personal case. Another example. Let's say you have $300,000 in debts and no assets, and you declare Chapter 7 liquidation bankruptcy. Your debts would be discharged. It would be silly for the government to call that discharge $300,000 in income and seek around $100,000 in taxes from you since you have no money. In the situation described by Shepard, that makes sense, right? The S corporation's massive business losses would have passed through to Trump as personal losses. The offsetting debt forgiveness enjoyed by the S corporation would not have passed through to Trump as taxable personal income because it was excluded from the S corporation's taxable income. In total, Trump would have harvested a huge loss that exceeded his initial investment in and prior profits from the S corporation. But wait, I hope you were saying, wouldn't that put Trump afoul of the rule that his tax losses from the S corporation can't exceed what he invested in it in the first place, plus the prior profits? Yes, it would. Except that before the 2002 loophole fix, the debt forgiveness enjoyed by the S corporation would have passed through to Trump for the purposes of calculating the amount of profit the S corporation had earned on his behalf, even though the same debt forgiveness did not pass through as an actual taxable profit to him. Shepard refers to this as a double dip. The tax loophole would have allowed Trump to claim losses on his individual income tax return that were ultimately borne by creditors, not by him. If that rule sounds stupid, that is because it was stupid. The IRS sought to disallow such tax deductions since they were obviously contrary to the intent of the laws around S corporations. But the Supreme Court ruled in 2001 in an 8-1 decision that the letter of the law allowed investors to use this tax strategy even if it made no sense. The only way to close the loophole was to change the law. That was in 2001. So guess what happened in 2002? As part of a broader bipartisan package of business tax reforms, Congress did just that. The new law ensured that if the cancellation of an S corporation's debt doesn't count as taxable income, it can't increase the shareholder's basis in the S corporation, creating additional headroom for the shareholder to deduct other losses he didn't really bear. This package of reforms passed the Senate by a vote of 85-9, one of the senators voting in favor, unsurprisingly, Hillary Clinton. I don't know that Trump benefited from this loophole, but it would fit the available evidence very well. And it would help explain how he managed to run up a tax loss so big that it amounted to nearly 2% of all the net operating losses taken on individual income tax returns in the entire country in 1995. It would also blow up the narrative that Trump's huge loss just reflects the tax code working properly, letting business people offset their real profits with their real losses. If Trump didn't use the Gitlitz loophole, and he really did enjoy a bona fide economic loss of nearly $1 billion, he could prove that by releasing his tax returns in their entirety. Until he does that, we can't just assume Trump, quote, used the tax code just the way it's supposed to be used, unquote, as his running mate, Governor Mike Pence, claimed Tuesday night. After all, like the rest of us, Pence has not seen the entire tax returns he is purporting to bless. So, does that, I mean, it sort of clears things up, but then, of course, it does tend to muddy the picture by using a lot of jargonese, if you will, even though jargon covers the term quite well. Anyway, I thought that was interesting and well worth taking a look at and sort of explain a little bit what actually might have happened. It's just speculation again, but it really is rather surprising. And I guess the best upshot of it is that you really can't get away with saying that makes me smart. You know, I used the tax loophole the way it was intended to be used. No, you didn't. I mean, maybe it makes you criminally, like, I guess, evil genius. You're smart to figure out that there is such a loophole, but the idea that that was the way taxes were supposed to work, and if it isn't, then why didn't Hillary Clinton fix it? It wasn't, and she did. So there you go. So as I mentioned, there were other takes on it, and perhaps I can include some of those in my notes to Scott for the roundup so you can take a look at the art of the steal. This is how Trump lost $916 million and avoided tax, according to the Daily Beast. This is, I'll just open it up to get the names and so oh my goodness, it's David K. Johnston, which would give me the opportunity, of course, to read the whole thing in a high-pitched voice. Long-time listeners will remember why I might do something like that. If you are a new listener and you think I do that because David K. Johnston has a high-pitched voice, no, he doesn't. He has a perfectly normal and quite resonant, I don't know, which normally people would say baritone at this point, but I don't remember exactly where his voice register is. But I've read David K. Johnston pieces on the air before, and I think what happened was one time I read it on the air and I put in the summary or in the daily tweet when the podcast was prepared. You know, there's a little blurb that goes out, and I think I mentioned that I had read a David K. Johnston piece on the air, and he saw that, and he said, "Oh, I'll listen to the podcast," and he listened to it, and he was disturbed by how frequently and freely I commented on an article in the middle of reading it, and that because there was no differentiation between my commentary as added and my reading of his words as he wrote them, he was upset, rightly, that people might get the impression that he had written something that he had not. But then, of course, I provide links all the time. And but, you know, how many of you really go and look and then compare it to what I read and then say, oh, I see now, that must have been commentary. And so I thought, well, I can fix that problem. Now, his way of fixing it was much more practical, which would be to say, he asked, can I come on the show and discuss these issues with you? And I said, yes, sure. My thought was, why bother David K. Johnston when he could be out doing investigative work that's important to the country? I will simply make sure that everyone knows which words are his and which words are mine. And probably the easiest way to do that would be to read his words in a squeaky falsetto and then do my own commentary in my own normal voice. And so that was a lot of fun, and it was a way of poking a thumb in his eye, not because he needs one in his eye, but because, I didn't want to do any additional work, and I thought that would be funny. And so I read David K. Johnston articles in high-pitched. I don't do it anymore because I no longer. I guess I'm lazy and I no longer care whether or not he's worried about whether I differentiate between his words and mine. Let's see if he has anything new and interesting or has a different take on it. I'll try and skim through it so I can get to a couple other subjects here. He is, of course, talking about the same $916 million loss. Trump, he says, he notes, insists that there's nothing to learn from his tax returns. That's part of the reason he's not handing them out. Yet, he says, David K. Johnston, right here and right now, is definitely, totally, personally writing the following. Yet, in one day, I figured out how Trump's advisors almost certainly arranged the massive tax losses, skipped out on a massive income tax bill, and then fashioned a loophole. He says they fashioned it. Oops, he didn't write he said. He says, though, fashioned a loophole. And now I stop reading David K. Johnston and say, how interesting that he concludes that he fashioned the loophole, which is instead named for the case that made it to the Supreme Court, but it may have been, I wonder if he thinks that Trump used this first and Gitlitz was just the first one called out on it. Now back to David K. Johnston. Ready? Fashioned a loophole with more valuable tax benefits than the already liberal tax breaks Congress gives big real estate owners while sticking others with the bill. Okay, stopping. I'm skimming now. I want to find out. Let's see. Does he have a different theory in any way? Let's see. He says that he consulted with two tax professors, Edward Kleinbart of the University of Southern California and Martin J. McMahon, Jr. of the University of Florida, and they refined his view. Trump's gambit is easy to explain in plain English, but for tax wonks, the short version is this. Trump combined tax benefits under Section 1231 of the Internal Revenue Code with the exception provisions of Section 108. I guess now we'll get into the plain English part. In his view, the story of Trump's income tax-free life begins in 1990 with Trump's well-documented mismanagement of his casinos and his admission that he paid far too much for trophy properties like the Plaza Hotel in Manhattan and 23 worn-out jetliners for the short-lived Trump Shuttle airline. These mistakes created about $1 billion of net operating losses, or NOLs, under Section 1231 of the tax code. NOLs are incredibly valuable. These tax losses can be used to offset salaries, business profits, and income from, say, a television show or making neckties in China. Thanks to his $916 million of NOLs, Trump could earn much over 18 years in salaries, profits, and interest, but pay no income taxes. Net operating losses should reflect economic damage suffered by the owner of the NOLs, but Trump found a way to gain from these losses by spreading the costs around to bankers and investors. NOLs can be used right away or applied to reduce taxes from 2 previous years and up to 15 future years. In contrast, Congress requires that real estate be depreciated for tax purposes over 39 years. The faster a tax break becomes available, the greater its value. Trump's advisors found a way to convert real estate depreciation into NOLs that were much more flexible and could be used faster. Trump claimed to be worth billions in 1990, just as he does now, yet he could not pay his bills. He stiffed hundreds of small business suppliers, including those for the Trump Taj Mahal Casino in Atlantic City, which will go out of business next week. I guess that's already now, right? That was my commentary. Gee whiz. In all, he owed more than $3 billion, nearly a third of his debt secured by nothing more substantial than his signature on bank loan papers. And for consistency's sake, again, I have to note this. David K. Johnston's text reads, in all, he owed more $3 billion. I added, than. I hope you'll forgive me. Last May, Trump revealed that he took on debt with no intention of paying it back, which strikes me as fraud. I've borrowed knowing you can pay back with discounts, he told CNBC in May, boasting, I've done well with debt. Back then, Trump threatened endless litigation unless 70 banks he owed money to gave him millions more in new loans at low interest rates and provided him with $5.4 million a year for personal spending. the equivalent of $10 million in today's money. Back then, one billionaire told the New York Times he didn't know how to spend that much money on himself and his family. Make everything gold, I guess. What made the litigation threat credible was Trump's refusal to pay more than 150 illegal immigrants who demolished the Bonwit Teller department store to make way for Trump Tower. A federal judge ruled that Trump conspired to cheat the workers who never did collect all of their $4 an hour wages, despite an 18-year struggle. The bankers realized that a man who could endure almost 2 decades of litigation to avoid paying such meager wages might tie them up for eternity over the billions of dollars owed to them. When the New Jersey Casino Control Commission took Trump's side against his bankers, they gave in. The banks canceled close to $1 billion of Trump's debts and extended new loans on favorable terms. Normally, any part of a loan that is forgiven becomes taxable income, as we learned before, as millions of people who could not pay their home mortgages or student loan debt have learned in recent years. And that's where Section 108 comes in. 3 years after Trump bested his bankers, Congress amended that section to let real estate professionals, and remember what Mark Sumner told us about them, they have to spend more than 50% of their time being professionals in real estate. That might now be in jeopardy. Real estate professionals are allowed to avoid income taxes on debt that were canceled. The technique is simple. The taxes due immediately, because a debt is forgiven, can be exchanged for relinquishing future real estate tax deductions. Trump agreed to forego his future right to take about $1 billion worth of depreciation on his casino hotels. This exchange created a future problem for Trump. Real estate that cannot be depreciated is worth a lot less. Indeed, generous tax benefits drive real estate investment. So while Trump escaped an immediate income tax bill, the future tax benefits he gave up would mean that he would likely have to pay income taxes on his salary, fees for licensing his name, and other income. To solve this problem, Trump sold stock for the first time in 1995. He founded Trump Hotels and Casino Resorts, which then took ownership of his casino hotels. That meant Trump got money for selling his casino hotels, while the investors got real estate with greatly diminished tax benefits. Trump Hotels and Casino Resorts was a complete disaster. It lost money every year. During Trump's 13 years as chairman, the company lost $1.1 billion. Trump's stock fell from a high of $35 to just 17 cents, wiping out investors. You'd be pretty much wiped out if it fell to $17, much less 17 cents. Trump did just fine, though. He was paid $82 million, Fortune magazine estimated. The publicly traded company even took out loans, again, that were used to pay off some of Trump's remaining obligations to the banks from when he owned his casinos outright. The $82 million Trump was paid by the publicly traded company bearing his name should have all been received income tax-free thanks to those NOLs. Thus, his mismanagement and the tax benefits he stripped out of the casino hotels before he sold them to shareholders made him richer and them poorer. So while Trump made money at every turn, the banks that lent him money, the workers, small businesses who delivered for Trump, and the investors in his casino company all got stiffed. And while they paid taxes on whatever income they did manage to collect, Trump enjoyed at least $916 million in tax-free income. In the first debate with Hillary Clinton, Trump did not dispute her statement that he pays no income taxes. Instead, he said, "It shows he's smart." That may be, but it also suggests the rest of us are chumps for paying our taxes while Trump enjoys all the benefits of the United States government, little things like individual liberty, the FBI, and the military to protect us, and Mar-a-Lago, I would add, while bearing none of the burden. If we all did as Trump does, we would, to quote a line Trump employs often, not have our country anymore. Just 3 pages of tax forms, years of assiduously following Trump, and deep knowledge of tax law allowed me, David K. Johnston, to determine how he almost certainly arranged to escape income taxes for years while he stuck others with the bill. Now imagine what voters could learn if I had just one complete Trump tax return or years of his Form 1040s and Schedules A through E, it would be possible then to evaluate his unverifiable claims that he is a modern Midas worth more than $10 billion. A complete tax return for 1995 would also make it possible to determine if Trump followed the law, as a statement he issued asserts, or misreported figures to inflate his tax savings. Trump has been found more than once to have used two sets of figures to short others and benefit himself. Keep in mind that we know Donald Trump engaged in sales tax fraud, as I detail in my book, David K. Johnston's book, The Making of Donald Trump. Earlier this year, I revealed badges of fraud on Trump's 1984 income tax returns. That's linked, of course. Under oath, his own tax lawyer and accountant disavowed the return. Then there's Trump's role in authorizing an alleged $250 million income tax fraud on profits from the Trump Soho in Manhattan. The profits were run through a corrupt Icelandic bank. Oh no, Iceland. Under the control of one of the many Russian oligarchs whom Trump has said has paid him tens of millions of dollars and are among his best customers. Trump's full tax returns would help us understand how deeply he's involved with the oligarchs, whose fortunes and even lives depend on maintaining friendships with Vladimir Putin, the murderous Russian autocrat, whom Trump goes out of his way to praise at every opportunity. You understand what I did there? I messed up the emphasis there. His full returns would help us understand how deeply he's involved with the oligarchs. The oligarchs are the people whose fortunes and lives depend on maintaining friendships with Putin. Maybe Donald's does too. Who knows? Trump's full tax returns would also tell us about his debts to the Bank of China, owned by the communist rulers in Beijing, and his many deals with Middle East potentates and their retainers. This is all true. I think we can probably end our discussion of the article here. There's many more things that David K. Johnston would be able to tell if he had those returns, but he doesn't. Okay. So, we'll move on here. There's a ton of articles still in here about what a con artist and jerk Donald Trump is. But we have a couple other things we might instead wish to add to the mix. One last bit, I guess, I will add to the Donald Trump mix for the day. It counts as a shift in gears as far as I'm concerned, because it won't be me talking about it. Instead, it will be one of our new contributors, Brian Monroe, who you remember I mentioned the other day and reminded you, and I'll remind you again, it's not the Brian Monroe you're thinking of. It's a different one. He is from Canada. So there you go. And again, if you know a Brian Monroe in Canada, this might not be him. It also is not Colonel Monroe of the British detachment on their way to fight the French and Indian War in The Last of the Mohicans, because that guy, he's dead. Anyway, I don't know what his first name was either. We just know he's a colonel. If Brian's a colonel, then the plot thickens. Anyway, you may know him, as I do, now that he's reminded me, on Twitter as Canuck Pundit. That's Canuck _Pundit. And someday, Canadians are going to have to clarify for me whether Canuck is a pejorative or not, or whether it's something that Canadians can say about themselves, but no one else can. I don't know. Anyway, I've just said it aloud, so you tell me. Am I in trouble with the Canadians? Canuck Pundit, Brian Monroe, has this piece, and he's reading. Also, remember yesterday we used the Daily News Bin. That's his source here, and it's a little bit of speculation on who is the anonymous source that sent the 1995 tax forms to the New York Times. Colonel Monroe, if you're ready, sir.
Good morning, David. This is Brian Monroe from Canada. Signing on again today. Well, anyway, I've sent you a couple of articles in the past, and I thought, well, maybe I'll be brave and actually dictate an article that I had sent to you via Twitter. And just as a reminder, my Twitter handle is Canuck _Pundit. Anyway, the article that I'm referring to is one that is dated October the 2nd, but the information is still pretty current, so I thought it might be something valuable to talk about on the Kagro in the Morning Show. So the article is called, let me just shift up a bit, it's called Marla Maples Swore If Donald Trump Ran for President, She'd Take Him Down. Now it appears she has. So this is clearly a speculation article, but I still think it's current because no one's really owned up to disclosing Donald Trump's taxes, and, the article kind of speaks for itself. Marla Maples, the second of Donald Trump's three wives, publicly insisted that if he ran for president, she'd find a way to take him down before he ever got anywhere near the White House. Remarkably, she made this threat 17 years ago, the first time Trump was flirting with the idea of entering the race. Now, all these years later, it appears Maples has finally found a way to make good on her promise by sticking a dagger in the heart of Donald's 2016 campaign. Rumors and speculation are flying as to just who leaked Donald Trump's 1995 tax returns to the New York Times this week, which revealed that he took a highly questionable, nearly $1 billion personal write-off that year in order to set himself up to not have to pay taxes for most of the rest of his life. But there's only one person who logically fits the description. Marla Maples was married to Trump in the 90s and had first-hand access to their tax documents from that era, but nothing since, making her just about the only person on earth in a position to leak his 1995 tax returns, but nothing from recent years. And she has an obvious axe to grind because, she told us she does. If he is really serious about being president and runs in the general election next year, I will not be silent, Marla Maples said all those years ago about her ex-husband. I will feel it is my duty as an American citizen to tell people what he is really like. She has been strangely quiet during the 2016 election, perhaps because Trump threatened to ruin her financially back in 1999 if she did blab about his true nature. But it appears she may have finally found a way to get around it. After all, even if Maples is revealed as the source, then all she did was leak her own tax returns, which just happened to have been filed jointly with Trump. She seems to be flaunting it too. Hours after the New York Times published the tax documents, she tweeted a picture of orange pumpkins as if to suggest she'd finally succeeded in turning her orange-faced ex-husband into one. So, obviously there is no real speculation as to if Marla really did this or not. It's purely speculation. And the only argument around if she would not have done that I have read in the few articles that I've seen is that she wouldn't want to embarrass her own daughter, and the fact that, knowing Trump and how he tries to take people down when they do anything against him, like Miss Universe, for instance, I'm sure she would prefer to kind of stay out of the spotlight there, but who knows? Maybe she recognizes that Donald Trump would be a real disaster in the White House, and she's doing what she can do and, respects the process. Anyway, so that is my input. I hope you enjoyed it, and have yourself a great Thursday. Kagro in the Morning, Brian Monroe in Canada reporting.
Thanks, Brian, Colonel. It's a good thing I got to this today. Otherwise, it really would have been embarrassing to play that one tomorrow, and be wished a good Thursday. So you never know. It doesn't always make the air immediately. So I guess programming notes for those of you who are thinking about adding your voices to the mix. And I will note for the record that I have in email, I haven't had a chance to download it and put it into Soundboard, so I'll save it for another day. But a new contributor, another person who says, hey, I've been inspired by your call for contributions. So we'll add another voice, and if I have correctly here, let's see, does John just want to go by John R. in Texas? That's as good a identifier as any. But one of our A, listeners, and B, friends from Daily Kos has decided to put his voice into the mix too. So let's see. We've got Michigan contributing. We've got Texas contributing. We've got Canada, which isn't a state and is in fact an entire country. And so we could just maybe say Ontario as a province. So we need somebody from Saskatchewan, please, and Alberta to weigh in. I appreciate all that you're contributing because, of course, it gives me a chance to turn off the microphone and take a drink of water and interest everybody else by adding a new and different voice to the mix. And it's just so Daily Kos-ish for us here on Daily Kos Radio. That's something we would aspire to be able to invite everybody in and say, yeah, you want to be the media? Be it. You want to blog because you're tired of seeing what's in the newspaper, and you want your chance to disseminate your opinion? Well, what about being tired of all of what's on right-wing radio? You want to have a radio show of your own? Sure, everybody does. But gosh, that sounds complicated and difficult, David. Well, it is. So don't do it. Well, I mean, you should do it anyway. But if you would like to give it a try or say, maybe this podcasting stuff is for me. Maybe it is something I can record for an hour, more or less at my leisure, and I don't have to be on the air at 9 o'clock or something like that. But still, an hour, that's no small feat to put together an hour worth of program. It doesn't have to be an hour. It can be 15 minutes. It can be 5. It can be 10. But wouldn't that be awkward, a 5-minute podcast? Sure. It would be a little awkward. So what do we do? Instead, how about this? Pick up your smartphone, record yourself for 5 minutes, take the links to the articles you read, email them to me, kagrox@gmail.com. It's no secret. Attach the audio file, send your links, tell me what your name is, tell me how you want to be identified on the radio, tell me how to pronounce your name if you think I might mangle it, and I will. And poof, you got it. I'll take it's like Uber, but for radio. I don't really know how it would be like Uber, but for radio. But we have the infrastructure to turn this into a radio show / podcast, and we will lend it to you approximately 5 minutes at a time. And if you love it and you begin to do it every day and you begin to get embarrassed, I think I'm monopolizing the show here by submitting 3 and 4 segments of 5 minutes per day. It's time for me to get my own show. Well, we can connect you with the people who can make that a reality too. So, it's an easy way in. I don't know why you wouldn't take it, to be honest. But then again, I don't understand why people do what they do generally. So, this is no exception. Okay. A few more stories that we can share in the next 15 minutes or so. Here's a gun fail story, sort of. It's not, because nobody got shot that I know of, and the gunfire was intentional, but I feel like this addresses a major issue, and I have to share it with you. And who sent me this one? I can't even remember which contributor sent me this one, and I think probably 4 or 5 people eventually sent this to me. Anyway, it's from Kentucky, so it is what it is. I don't know. You've all heard by now, and I cannot account for why, that America is being terrorized by clowns. Not Donald Trump type clowns. That counts. I don't want to discount that. But I mean people who are actually dressing up as clowns. I do not know why they're dressing up as clowns. I don't know if they're actually committing any crimes. I think from what I've read, they're just dressing up and freaking people out. I don't know why, but they're doing it. And then I imagine that the rest of that is just copycat stuff going on. I heard that people are freaking out about clowns everywhere. Wouldn't it be funny for me to put on a clown mask and walk around and freak everybody out around here? And of course, it's Halloween time. It's probably never hard to find clown masks or clown makeup for that matter. But now you can just go to the grocery store and buy a clown mask. It'll be on the shelf, and there'll be evil clowns at that. And just say, now I can make myself a freak out artist here in my hometown. Well, somebody did it. Well, they've done it all over the place. Did somebody do it in Kentucky is the real question. Well, somebody thinks they did. That's the point. And now I've given away the story here. Here's your headline. Man fires his AR-15 to scare clown. But clown was woman walking her dog. Congratulations, America. We made it. This is like peak everything. This is from the Lexington Herald-Leader, Seth Perlman of the AP for this one, or I guess originally at the Kentucky Standard, and now it's being run in this, the Herald-Leader. A man used his AR-15 gun. That's their writing. That's the way they put it. It's a little stilted, but what else would you use? I mean, if you're looking to scare somebody, AR-15 is a good piece for that. That's generally cited as the chief reason to have an AR-15. But he used his AR-15 to scare a woman. Why did he think she was a clown? She was wearing a white Afghan on Monday, and you cannot wear white Afghans on Monday after Labor Day. After mistaking her for a clown. This is nuts. This is not like, I mean, did he think that was one of the big, like, goofy, round, oversized lace collars that your traditional, like, Ringling Brothers, Barnum and Bailey Circus clowns wore? I don't see how that looks like. I mean, I remember when they thought Rachel Ray was a terrorist because she had a scarf on, but now you put it on an Afghan and they go, oh my God, it's a clown. What? Maybe I should be taking what I really need to be looking at is images of white Afghans, and hopefully they won't be showing me people or the dogs. Yeah, I figured there was, or the blankets either. I mean, I don't know. Here's people. Oh, look, white people from Afghanistan, blankets, and I don't know. So I'm not 100% sure I understand what she would have been wearing, but it's an article of clothing, and she's not a clown. That's the key element in all of this. Probably no makeup. He thought she was dressed funny. This is the guy's thinking. I don't know what goes on in Bardstown, Kentucky. You tell me, maybe there's nothing to do. There goes a woman who's dressed funny. Dressed funny? Clowns are dressed funny. Clowns are evil criminals, and their activities are spooking the entire nation. I need a gun. I need an AR-15. I'm running inside. I'm getting the AR-15. That's how I will deal, as opposed to, hey, get lost, clown. You don't scare me. Well, they do scare you. By the way, well, I'll get through the article here, and I will offer some more thoughts on this, if that's valuable at all. According to the citation, this one from the Bardstown Police Department, a woman was walking her dog, and I don't even think the dog was an Afghan, down Burlington Court. Well, that explains it. Burlington Court, the home of Bardstown Clown College, right? Whatever. Burlington Court in Bardstown, Kentucky, wearing a white Afghan when a man yelled at her and then fired an AR-15. So what else is new, right? A man yelled at her. Hey! Yeah? Oh. That has been a dramatic reenactment. Thank you. The man, Adam Tingle, Tingle, not Tinkle, Tingle. I feel a tingle in my hand. I better get an AR-15. Said his wife was outside. No, don't jump to. It wasn't his wife he shot at. His wife was outside when she thought she saw a clown. So Tingle came out and yelled at the individual, according to the citation. I love police language, but what else are they going to write in this? So she's outside, and then she's like, what? A clown! Help! Adam! Honey! Whatever she may call him. Adam, there's a clown out here. A clown? Where's my AR-15? Well, the woman, it says, did not move after being yelled at, so Tingle fired one shot from his AR-15 rifle in an attempt to scare her. Tingle's wife then, at that point, called 911 to report the incident. Now, I need more information. The woman didn't move after being yelled at. Like, what did you yell. Because sometimes when people have a gun, AR-15 or otherwise, and they point it at you and they yell something at you, what do they yell? Freeze! Now, if you yell freeze and the woman doesn't move, and you go, that's it, she didn't even move. I don't know. So presumably not freeze, but maybe, hey, clown, get out of here, or something like that, I guess, right? Now, if you are an actual woman wearing a white Afghan walking your dog, and maybe your dog is in the middle of peeing too, right? And you can't just drag him. Or worse. Anyway, so if somebody yells to you, you're walking down the street minding your own business, minding your own damn Afghan business, and the dog minding his business, and you're minding the dog's business, and somebody yells at you, hey, you clown! You don't scare me! I'm not afraid of clowns, despite the fact that I have this AR-15 pointed at you. And you're not a clown. You process this how? Huh? Now, you got several options. Put your hand to your ear and say, pardon? Or move closer and say, I'm sorry, I couldn't quite make out what you said. I thought you accused me of being a clown. Or you say, my first instinct is to move closer and ask exactly what do you mean by this. I thought you said you thought I was a clown, but this does not make any sense to me. How can I help you? Or do you then say, well, that would be my initial instinct, but one, I think this person is crazy. And without the AR-15, if I think you've come out and yelled at me, hey, you're a clown. Get out of here, clown. I'm not afraid of you. I'm not afraid that you're a part of the nationwide craze of spooky clowns. I would say, wow, like this person may have mental issues, maybe just needs a checkup at the optometrist. I don't know. I don't want to judge, but I'm not going to move closer. I might move away, but my dog is peeing, or worse, and I can't go just yet. And also, I'm on the street. I right now, as a matter of fact, I could stand my ground if I wanted to. Then, of course, add the AR-15 into the mix, and then I'm not really sure what you do. You probably freeze, and if you can't understand what the person's yelling at you, my first guess would be this person is probably yelling either freeze or get out of here, and I'm not really sure which one it is. I don't know how long he waited, and then he fires, which, by the way, at that point, I don't know what things are like in Bardstown, Kentucky, but it's a pretty good chance. Kentucky's a gun-loving state. Maybe she has a gun in her purse. I read about people who bring guns with them to walk their dogs all the time. Not to date, so that they can fire at people who mistake them for clowns. But, the day is young. It could have happened again, for all I know. And it might happen yet. But imagine that. Imagine he shoots back and kills the guy and then claims she claims stand your ground, which she would be entitled to, I guess. This is so rife with problems, I can't even begin to peel them all apart. According to the citation, Tingle said he was scared for his family because of recent criminal activities involving clowns. Now we have a difficulty if we get to court with this one and we say, what are the criminal activities involving clowns? And the answer is, I've seen a lot of people get worried about clowns on television and worried that they were going to perpetrate criminal activity, but they have not. And I say, this is racial profiling. You can't racially be, this is racist against clowns who are white, generally speaking. At least the makeup that they apply is extremely white. But there are, of course, black clowns. And, of course, I would imagine Asian and Native American clowns as well, although I just don't know anything about them. But I'm willing to be inclusive here. Because I'm progressive. But so it says here, a slew of criminal activity relating to people dressed as clowns has taken Kentucky in particular by storm in recent weeks. And that is a bad choice of words because a storm is coming, ladies and gentlemen. Hurricane Matthew, and it's raining clowns. Wednesday night, Jefferson County Public Schools worked with the Louisville Metro Police Department. You like the pronunciation? Louisville, which is not Louisville or Buena Vista or anything like that. Louisville Metro Police Department to investigate school threats, which included mention of clowns. The things you can't say bomb in an airport and you can't say clown in a school. Used to be that your graffiti had to say you were going to shoot somebody. Now you just write clown and it's a freak out. In Middlesboro, this is part of the crime wave sweeping Kentucky. Middlesboro, a man wearing a clown outfit, we think, anyway, was arrested and charged with wearing a hood or mask in a public place and disorderly conduct. They could never nail a Klansman on this, but clowns they can. Disorderly conduct? What? I don't know. Honking a horn, I guess, and throwing confetti. It's a bucket full of water. Look out! Oh my God! Oh, it's confetti. Still, that is disorderly, sir, and you're going in. In Winchester, talk about a crime wave. A woman reported being attacked, that's a crime, Thursday night by a man in a clown mask. She was on a trail and fought him off. Fought him off as an attacker. She wasn't on the trail and then said, well, I fight you, it will be off the trail. No. You get the point. Tingle was charged with 1 count of second-degree wanton endangerment. He has a court date set for October 18th. Officers took his rifle at the time of the incident. Anyway, the point really of all this is don't dress up as a clown. You're just asking for it. That's the new, did you see what she was wearing? She was dressed as a clown. No wonder she was attacked. And 2, presumably, if you're buying an AR-15 for home protection, or any kind of protection, I would have thought that this would make you more confident that nothing would happen to you or to your family. But as it turns out, it makes you more panicky when you've got the gun. Or at least, I guess I should say, it doesn't necessarily make you more panicky, but it makes you more likely to translate your fears and panic into death for somebody, and not always death for an appropriate person, if there is such a thing. That's the thing. Guns should, I think, if you're properly trained and you know how to use it and you know when to use it and when not to, a gun will make you more confident in a dangerous situation, possibly. That can lead to its own problems, but unfortunately I see more often than not, since I look at accidents, that people lose their confidence or are willing to lose their confidence that a situation that is potentially dangerous can be resolved peaceably, and instead they go directly to the gun. Honey, I think I see a clown. AR-15. Case in point. Don't do it. Not necessary. I'll tell you more. I got another gun fail story you won't even believe. I think we'll talk about it tomorrow when Josie Duffy Rice comes around. She has seen it. She has written about it. It's a gun fail story. It's got to be discussed. What about the rest of the day today, though? On Netroots Radio, which you can find at netrootsradio.com if you are listening to us by podcast. Thursday, thank God it's Joe Vidi, they call it over on the after show. Wink and Justice have got the following. Convicted coal baron Don Blankenship exercises his First Amendment rights by issuing a 67-page booklet from federal prison claiming he is an American political prisoner, with heated exchanges between defense lawyers, defense witnesses, and defendants against the judge. Ammon Bundy defended his takeover of the Malheur Wildlife Refuge in federal court.
NetrootsRadio.com. You have been listening to the Kagro in the Morning Show
with David Waldman.
And speaking of court, the Bridgegate trial reveals Chris Christie's expletive-filled tirades. That's always going to be good. On the last half, they'll be reporting that one of the largest mass rescue operations undertaken in the Mediterranean Sea, the Italian Coast Guard rescued over 10,000 migrants and refugees in 2 days. All of that, plus more on the After Show next.